You can tell her, you can tell her anything. She's a real good listener. You can tell her anything.
Yo, what's up? It's your girl, Father Longlegs. It's me, Daddy T. You know me. Oh my god. I'm so excited to have my guest on today. She's laughing very hard at my introduction, which is fine. Okay, nobody really calls me that. I'm trying to make it work. But my guest, I'm so excited because she's from the Bay Area, which is where I'm from, and she's so funny. Put your hands together for Irene Tu.
Woo!
And you're about to start a podcast. How are you, Irene?
Yeah, I am about to start a podcast.
Do you want to tell us about? Well, okay, so we often start with a good confession as an icebreaker, which is not like really a confession. It's just like a positive thing that you want to say. It could be anything. But do you want to tell us about your podcast? Is that or
we've recorded 2 episodes. We might not release the first one we recorded because I don't know how good that one was. But I don't really want to say that much about it, only because I'm afraid that we'll change the format before we actually launch it. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, you wanna plan out that marketing, but that's good. That you're busy and doing projects. I feel like it's like I go up and down. I mean, I feel like this podcast I started before quarantine, so it's been easier to keep it afloat, but it's been hard to like start anything that had not had wheels going already.
Oh yeah, I was fully just laying in bed for a month doing nothing.
Which is perfectly acceptable. Let's get into it. So this podcast is loosely inspired by therapy, and obviously I, as an Asian American woman with parents from Taiwan, did not go to therapy until I was an adult. They were very against it. So I was just like really liked how it felt to be able to get things off my chest. And it's not really a therapy podcast in that we don't have to talk about therapy stuff. But I just like to ask, like, what is your experience with therapy? Do you have you ever gone? Do you hate it? Do you like it? Just a general sort of like what has been your experience or relationship with it?
I don't go to therapy. I've never really gone to therapy. I actually was forced to go to therapy when I was in high school because my parents were separating, and my mom was like, "You have to go because it's the law." I think she made that up.
Damn.
I think she just like wanted me to go because she was like, my parents were like getting divorced or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But she told me I had to legally, and I was like, I'm pretty sure you made this up now in hindsight.
Maybe
but I
it's
hated
like
it.
maybe it's like a I don't know enough about divorce courts, but I wonder if it's one of those things like the parent that's doing more. I don't know.
I know, I'm pretty sure she just lied about it. I've never asked her about it. Maybe she'll listen to this podcast and just pretend that she didn't hear it. Sometimes she will check up on me on the internet and listen to stuff I've been on, and then we never talk about it.
How do you know she's checking? My mom does that too. She will message me about tweets every once in a while. But
oh really? But yeah, sometimes she'll say something where it's like, "Oh, I never said that out loud. You must have found it on the internet."
That's funny. That is surprising to hear because I feel like I don't meet a lot of Asian parents that encourage their kids to go to therapy unless they're personally in the medical field. Did your mom go herself?
Oh no, she didn't go. She just made me go. She would drop me off and then pick me up. And then I hated it because it was like an hour and I refused. I didn't want to be there at all. I just went because I had to go.
Sure.
And I think for therapy, you have to want to actively participate for it to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not want to do that. So whenever she would ask me questions, I just wouldn't talk. And then she was forced to play. They have therapy games. They're kind of like board games that they make. It's mostly for children.
Sure.
To encourage them to talk. So she would attempt to play these games with me.
Dang.
And I still wouldn't say anything. And then after maybe 3 times, 4 times, clearly it was not working. So then my mom stopped making me go.
Yeah, I heard that a couple of guests have talked about having to go, or their first experience being with having to go for things going on in their life. And yeah, I hear that it feels almost more like it's an interrogation if you're not actively going, because then it's just it's almost like your parents are trying to be like, all right, well, instead of talking to you, I will ask the therapist.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
Information.
And also, I feel like I'm just never really that comfortable talking with strangers anyways. And then I'm like,
And as
oh,
a
why am
child
I?
too.
Yeah, I'm like, what, 14 or something, and I have to talk to this random adult about my personal issues. I'm like, you don't know me. Like, why would I tell you anything?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's so interesting because I feel like, yeah, I'm very much like now. There's a lot of like I've been a bad therapist too, and I'm not like a therapist is the holy grail, but because I had no idea growing up that there was like really the realm of mental health was out there. It's been very interesting as an adult to navigate that. But oftentimes I'll talk to people who don't go to therapy at all, but are like really active in like meditation or spiritual things or their church community. And there's a lot of crossover in it's like what you're getting out of it. It's like if you're going in to learn about yourself and actively participate in your community, then it doesn't have to be someone you pay too much money for and talk to for 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is I'm like, I don't want to pay this much money to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So I currently don't go to therapy, and I instead just read a lot of self-help books.
Ooh, what's the latest one you've read?
Yeah, and I talk to friends. My favorite one is The Four Agreements.
Oh, okay. I feel like I want to say I've heard like Pete Holmes or someone talk about this, but I'm not.
Probably. I think a lot of like artists have read it.
Gotcha. Do you find yourself like, are you the type of person who reads a self-help book and that's like the fad for the next bit of time and then you forget about it? Or are you like actually, because when The Secret was popular, I feel like everyone was doing it and then they just like dropped it. Or do you like compound the stuff you're learning? Like, are there things from self-help books you're like still implementing right now?
I try to. Sometimes I will forget like the quote unquote lessons in the book. And then later I'll like read the book again. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do that. But there is like the main thing that I learned from that book was just to not take anything personally. And now I feel like I get less mad at other people because I'm like, oh, they're going through their own thing.
Do you usually, or did you used to take things very personally?
I didn't think I did, but I guess like sometimes I'd be like, why don't they like me? Or, why I want to be friends with this person, just like thoughts where I was centering it around me, but I don't need to do that, because I feel like nobody's thinking about me. They're just thinking about their own shit.
Well, it's not that nobody is thinking about you, but yeah, that's interesting. I feel like so I like self-help books, but I've always been hot and cold with them because my sister loves them, and she's kind of the person who will be like all of a sudden doing like the artist way, like pages every morning. But sometimes I feel like, this is my personal opinion, so I don't feel like everyone needs to agree with me, but sometimes I feel like all that energy is taken away from my own understanding of it. And I guess you bringing up the like nobody is thinking about me makes me think of, I've recently come to the conclusion that a lot of times like putting these rules on it makes everything feel so binary, because I either go, I used to always think this and now I must never think this, and now my new thing is like, sometimes people are thinking about you, sometimes they're not. And then now I go, is this a case? But you have to build the intuition. It takes a while. But then you can go, is this a case where this person is actively sabotaging me, which does happen? Or is this a case where I'm taking my past preconceptions because I've been hurt and actually nothing in the situation leads, like there's no evidence that it's happening? And I think that's a harder thing to do, and I'm not good at it. But that's my one issue with self-help, is they often speak from one extreme to the other, and then you're like, well, sometimes you do have to call someone on their bullshit.
So what we're saying is everything is not a binary, and there's just so much gray area.
But yes, and no, like not gray area as in like if you're in the middle, it doesn't matter. Like, I guess I'll use an example because I really went through a lot of trust issues when I was growing up. Of like, first I was like very codependent with relationships early on, like where someone liked me, I'm like, I feel love, so now I will give you everything. But then if they didn't like me, I'm like, well, that's you're being a dick because I gave you everything. And then later it was the opposite way, where it's like, well, I'll give you nothing, I'll put my walls up, and you've got to break down my walls. And eventually I was like, I think the people that I'm attracting are people who are also like have walls or don't, like not respecting boundaries. Because if I'm asking someone to knock down my walls actively, then I'm asking for someone who doesn't respect boundaries. But now I'm at a place where I'm like, there are times when I like someone and they do violate a boundary, and I can but I can call it out, and if they don't respect my wants, then I can say, oh, it looks like you didn't respect my boundaries, bye-bye, versus just going, it's all this or all that. But I don't know, because then it also does require a bit of like walking away from situations and quote unquote losing things. But I think in the long run, you realize all you lost was like a worse breakup later.
I mean, all of that is true. You sound very healthy mentally, Teresa.
No, I'm very much not. No. Thank you. I think it helps to talk through it with other people. But no, I mean, this took 30 years of a lot of mistakes, I will say, that I was actively thinking I was doing the right thing. So I'm sure in 10 years I'll be like, oh, fuck, that was stupid. But I guess my little confession. But Irene, that leads me to ask you, is there something you'd like to tell me?
I found my ex's baby blog recently.
Yes.
In quarantine. Speaking of,
Oh my God,
mistakes and boundaries.
I love this because I was kind of hoping you would talk about this because you've mentioned it on a show, but I wanted to dig into it more.
That's so funny. Of course you knew I was going to say this. What else would I confess?
Let's get into it. Okay, so how long did you guys date? So that, like, how serious of an ex was this?
I've only dated a few people, so this is like one of the serious people that I've dated. We dated very on and off for, I think, like a little bit under 2 years.
Gotcha.
But very on and off.
Uh-huh.
So I wouldn't say what amount of time that really is.
But I think that sometimes those ones are the ones that have more lasting impressions. And I do the thing where I just stitch it all together. I'm like, over the course of 3 years, probably dated for like, 7 months, but like 3 years it was.
I really try to like round down instead of round up though, because then it feels worse if you round up.
Oh, true. So feel like you're on the avoidant. Are you on the avoidant end when you're in relationships?
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, it was maybe like a year.
How long ago did you guys break up?
3 years ago.
Okay, enough time to have a baby and write a blog about it.
Oh yeah, she was trying to have this baby right after we broke up, apparently.
Oh wow.
I read the blog.
Oh, okay. So I sense a little vindictiveness in this tone. So I mean, ex can mean a lot of things. Generally speaking, I feel like it's in the past and it's over. But like, are you guys friends? Do you guys talk at all? Does she how did it end poorly? Who broke up with you?
Oh, we're not friends. It ended very poorly. A lot of it was not good. I blocked her on everything. Mm-hmm. And I really had to find this blog.
Why?
No, I didn't know that it existed. I'm just saying, like, the way I found it might be a little suspect.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Was this quarantine?
Yeah, this was
detective?
Like
okay.
in the middle of quarantine when you're just like, I have 24 hours a day that I need to burn, and I'm only talking to myself because we couldn't leave the house. This was like in the middle when everyone was like, we literally are not allowed to leave our house. Like, we will get it. If we step outside, we will get COVID.
I understand that. I look through, when I can't sleep, sometimes I'll dig through old diary entries and just cry, but for fun, I know that doesn't sound fun, but it's like reading an old book or watching an old movie. You already know the ending too. You're like, I turned out fine, but this period of my life was sad.
Can I tell you a side confession?
Yeah.
Since you just said that, I have not kept a diary ever because of my paranoia that one day somebody would discover it and read it.
I mean, I feel like that's why I keep a diary.
I'm like, I don't want people to know who I liked when I was like 12,
But then you do stand-up, so, but you don't talk about as much. Well, you do talk about personal stuff in stand-up. I feel like I've definitely. I do. You're probably less of an oversharer than I am, but why does it feel different if you're like on a stage? Is it more like impersonal because it's controlled?
I don't know what it is. I've always had an issue with writing, which is ironic, again, because I do stand-up. But like the act of writing, and I've been trying really hard in quarantine to just sit down and like write just everything and anything that I'm feeling. But I don't know why, since I was a kid, I just had a really hard time expressing my emotions on paper because of my fear that somebody else would read it and think that A, I was crazy, and B, more importantly, that I was a bad writer.
So then you are a true writer if that's what you're worried about.
I'm like so afraid that someone would like read this and be like, "Are you 5? Like, this is horrible."
That's so funny because I also write a lot of terrible things, but there's a part of me that loves going back to like very like years ago versions of me and reading bad writing. And I almost think it's safer to like push the feeling away so I don't have to deal with it now. And then when I go back, I'm like, oh, this was truthful, but it's not me anymore. So I can then look at it. It's probably not that healthy because I should process it at some point. But I'll go back and look at stuff to be like, look at this, like, so funny. But it's like, oh, she sounds like she was in pain. But then it's like okay for me to share it at that point because then it's like, hey, check out my 15-year-old self being so sad. It's like, well, I'm not there anymore.
Yeah, that's true. So I am trying really hard to do that. I think it's just also stemmed from the fact that English is actually not my first language, and most people don't know that. Because I have
was it Chinese?
Yeah, so I spoke Mandarin till I was like 5. I was very fluent Mandarin. Then I learned English, and now I'm just like okay at Mandarin.
Me too. Well, English wasn't my first language, but I did grow up here. So as soon as I went to like kindergarten, I learned English, and then very quickly, that filled up my brain. Did you go to a Chinese school?
Exactly. Oh my God, I did. I forgot. I had to go to Chinese school every Saturday.
Me too.
It sucked.
Wait, we're both in the Bay. Which one did you go to?
No, I'm from Chicago.
Oh, that's right. Duh. But you live in the... Okay. I went to Barrios Chinese school, which was in San Jose at like Morial Middle School. But it was like a whole thing. There was like a district of China, because the Bay Area has a lot of Asian Americans. So there's like a whole district where they would have like competitions, like district competitions sometimes at the end of the year for like, calligraphy and like all the Chinese arts events and abacus. I had to go to an abacus thing once. I hated it.
Yeah, ours was not that serious. We just like went to go learn how to read and write Chinese, but I hated it, so I barely studied.
Did you move to Chicago, or were you born here, or you just didn't learn Chinese or English till you got to school?
So I was born in the States, and then I grew up in Chicago, but I didn't learn English till later, mostly because like my family, like they don't know English that well. I mean, my mom's pretty good now, but, at the time, they were also learning English while I was learning English,
Were you, did they tell you, like, oh, when you go to school, you'll have to learn, or was it a shock to just suddenly go from everybody speaks and understands me to nobody understands me?
I don't really remember much except, I mean, I knew I didn't know English because my very first memory of school was I was in... Well, two memories. One, I was in preschool. I didn't know English, and I just learned how to tie my shoes because I was like staring at the person next to me during nap time, and they were tying their shoes, so I learned how to make the bunny ears.
Aww.
Yeah, that's cute, right? But then the other memory was when I was in kindergarten. Yeah, it was kindergarten. The very first day of school, I didn't know where the bathroom was, and I had to pee, so I went up to the teacher, and I kept asking, "Where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom?" But in Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was staring at me because she didn't know what I wanted. And then I had to hold it the entire day. And then I ran home from school and I peed. And then the next day my mom like asked the teacher and showed me where the bathroom was. But that's like how much I didn't know English. I couldn't say a single word.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I imagine that like, because you're saying like how it's expressing yourself. There's like these like walls. I mean, I don't know like exactly that. We'd have to dig in more, but we don't have to today. But I'm sure there are some connections. But your bathroom thing is interesting because I've shared this on this pod before, but I was taught like 3 phrases when I first got to school. My mom was like, she purposefully didn't teach us English because she knew we would learn it and she wanted us to have foundation of Chinese. But she taught us like a couple of things like the bathroom, but she taught us like, I have to go to the bathroom. I think I'm hungry. I can't remember the other, but I didn't know how to say I'm thirsty and I wanted to drink water. And I couldn't say it, but I said I'm hungry for water. And then the kids laughed at me. So sort of different, but I feel like that must be like like a memory that maybe a lot of ESL kids who grew up here have, like the first time you had to communicate with people in a school environment. There's like a little bit of shame, even though there shouldn't be, but I think children understand, like, it's nothing to be ashamed of, but you feel immediately like embarrassed, like, well, why don't I know this thing and everyone does?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I think that's why I have such a hard time writing too, because I had to like learn how to read and write in first grade, like kindergarten, first grade. I had to like catch up to everybody else. And then like by the time I was in like third or fourth grade, I was reading it like above my grade level, so it was fine. But in the back of my head, I have this imposter syndrome where I'm like, do I even know English at all?
I mean, a lot of native speakers don't know English at all, so I think it's fine. I think that's why I like comedy and I mean, I don't really share my poetry, but I do enjoy writing it, and I think there's something abstract that it doesn't have to, it just gets the feeling and the words out to me that is like technically incorrect, but correct for how I feel, and it comes from that like, oh, I didn't foundationally understand the language, which...
Well, yeah, that's like why I like stand-up, is because even if it's not poetic or, you know, there's not any similes or metaphors, like if you can get the joke across, like you're like, oh, I did it, like they get what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're communicating more information than meets the eye, which is how you feel, or a complex feeling about a situation.
Right. Yeah, and also I just want people to like me.
Okay, so then let's go back to this blog thing. So so you were reaching out to her, I imagine, in a lonely time of quarantine. Were you...
Oh, I did not reach out.
Oh, you were looking for her, but you were hoping...
No, I was not looking for her. I just had a dream about her, which I never have. And I just was like, oh, that's weird that she like popped up in my dream. It wasn't like bad or anything. It just was like, she just like happened to make like a cameo in my dream. I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I was like, oh, I wonder what she's doing. Because we have not spoken like since we broke up. I don't know what she's doing. I also don't care, honestly.
Did you break up with her, or did she break up with you?
I mean, technically she broke up with me, but I also didn't want to be there.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, we, again, on and off the whole time.
Okay.
So I was just like, oh, I wonder what she's doing. And then, you know, I'm awake at 2 or 3 a.m. every night now, basically, because the world is ending. And then I was like, okay, let me just do some Google searching, and then somehow stumbled across this blog, and I was like, what? Is this? Oh, okay. And then I clicked on it, and then I skimmed the whole thing.
Did you Control F your name?
I did not Control F my name, but I did read the whole thing to see if I was mentioned in this blog. That's the only reason I skimmed it.
And were you mentioned in the blog?
Oh yeah, definitely. There was something about me, which I did not find flattering, and I was annoyed at. But
were you hoping to? I'm curious about what you were hoping to, because it sounds like, you know, you guys weren't talking, and it ended in like a closure sort of situation. And I totally get being like, oh, I'm curious what they're up to. What were you going into this like hoping to see anything, or not at all, or like what? Like, did you have any expectations? Like, oh, I wonder if she's still thinking about me, or what was the like? What were you looking for going in?
Honestly, I don't know, because like no part of me was like, oh, I'm gonna reach out and talk to her, and I just like I have like no feeling, like I don't care, but I just was like so curious when I saw it, and I was like, I wonder, because while we were dating too, she has always wanted to have a baby, and I did not. Also, I was very young, so I was like, I like just graduated, so I don't want to have a baby. So then when I saw this baby vlog, I was like, oh wow, she went through with it. And then I just like wanted to know what happened. But I don't know. I feel like what's the reason any of us check up on our exes? You know, just to make sure they're a little bit unwell.
This is interesting because I've gone through many different phases. Like I for sure for a long time was the person who like every day was checking on exes, and then in order to not check on the one that I cared about, would check on the others to distract myself. Like bad unhealthy patterns like that.
Yeah, it might have been that too.
But I don't do that as much now, because, well, for one, I feel like most of them are married, and but then also I've done the I now have, I guess, gotten the thing that I guess the missing part that I thought I needed from them, from myself. But I'll say this is very new. This is like quarantine me. So who knows if it'll last when I'm out. But I did used to like want people to check on me. So it's this kind of interesting because you saying, in a way, like the way you like don't want to write down things, but I want to write down things, and I'm insecure attachment, but more on the needy side, and it sounded like you're maybe more the pulling back or waiting for them to get the hint. So I don't know, like I don't know if that's an accurate read, but it seems like maybe like you wouldn't bring up something's wrong, right? You kind of like hope that you'll like just act that way until they end it for you, or are you the kind of person to be like, hey, what's going on, like why are you
you mean like for breakups?
Yeah, or
No.
just in general, like communication and relationships. Are you non-confrontational?
You know, I'm trying to get better at communication. I was really bad at it, which is why none of my relationships worked out before. I haven't dated anybody since we broke up, because I was working on myself. But yeah, before I just like, I am very non-confrontational. I don't like to start shit. Probably because my parents were always fighting, and I'm like, I don't want to I don't like fighting. You know, it just like that always is like, I guess, triggering for me or whatever. So I'm just like, let's just not talk about it.
Well, do you get scared if you bring something up that it will be an unexpected reaction? Like someone will get mad at you?
I mean, I guess. Yeah, I guess I don't really like people being mad at me.
When you say that way, I'm like, nobody does. But no, I mean, this isn't meant to be leading. I'm just curious because I feel like, in a way, like it's interesting because you and I have some similar foundational experiences, but then kind of like the opposite development or the opposite coping mechanisms. Because, and I also saying this to say that you could give yourself more credit for you saying like your non-confrontational is not the reason the relationship ended. Like that usually takes two to tango. So in a situation like that, it might be true that you felt, oh, I should have said something, but you didn't. But at the same time, that tension was probably there, and your partner may have also been like, oh, I need Irene to say something, but she's not. So I'm also going to be a stalwart and do nothing. And on their end, they're also resisting. Like that's, I think, the hardest part, because I used to be like so needy that I'd pulled too far back. But now I just go, I'm needy, but what I'm scared of is I won't get what I need if I ask for it. But if that's true, then this is bad a relationship, which is the hard part. But now I'll just be like, here's how I am. Here's what I need. If you're the avoidant type, I'm just going to be like, I sense this. Is it true? And get it out of them. And if they can't do that, then I'm like, it seems like we might not be the best match.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to do more of that. But yeah, I think maybe at the time also I was like in denial / did not want to break up with people if it wasn't working out. I'm just like, because I really hate change. So in a way, it's like if I don't talk about it, nothing's going to change. Even if it's bad.
It's so interesting. I don't think you're alone in feeling that. I very much have been in situations where I'm like, I'll have two realities almost, like a reality where the relationship's good and a reality where the relationship's bad, but I want it to be good. So as long as it is still good, I'll just like kind of be like, well, all that bad stuff didn't happen as long as there's a happy ending. But in reality, It's like, well, you can't really, like it didn't happen.
Have that.
You can choose to accept it and be like, I accept this 70% relationship because I like the 30%, but it's different if you're like, well, I'm just going to pretend the 70% didn't happen.
Right.
Okay, man, I want to ask, well, okay, so like, I'm more curious about the going back and looking at it versus the actual relationship. Because I think that's what's interesting. Like we all can relate to like wanting to check up on our exes, even if it's not because you're not over it. It's not because you're still pining, but there is a sort of like you put yourself into a relationship and you do kind of learn about yourself in a way when you check on the people you were with, whether they changed or not, or like what you liked about them, or if you still like them. So did you, in looking at this, have any revelations about yourself, or like learn anything about like how you view that part of your life?
I mean, it was kind of nice because I didn't cry. I had like no huge emotions about it. I just was like, wow, I can't believe I did that. Like a part of me, like now is just like, why did we ever date? You know, like this is crazy. Like that I did this.
Huh.
Insane. Which is nice. You know, that's like closure for me. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm over this part of my life. But the other part of me while I was reading it was like, wow, I must be a little bit insane because I found this blog and I'm reading it.
But she's writing it and including stuff about you, so I think it's a two-way street.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, oh, this is like my fear is someone will find my version of that and they'll read it without my knowledge.
What
But
is
I'm the
so
one who's
scary
doing
about
that.
I'm just curious. Why is that scary to you if someone finds how you feel for real about them?
I don't get very close to people at all. You know this probably, right, Teresa? I mean, I'm talking to you on this podcast and confessing everything, so we must be very close. But normally, like, I'm like friends with a lot of people, or like, I don't know if people would call me friendly necessarily because I kind of have an RBF thing going on. But I like get along with most people. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. Like, I can get along with pretty much anybody. But not a lot of people like really know me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always afraid that if like someone really knows me that they don't want to be friends with me. So
It's the dilemma of, and I think it's common amongst a lot of like performers or artists, is like you want to truly be seen, but you have to do it in a controlled way, because if you really are seen and people don't like it, then they're saying no to your core. But to accidentally be seen and someone loves it is like the best feeling, because you're like, oh, I didn't mean to show that to you, but you like it? Okay, great.
yeah, exactly. I think people fall in love with you as a performer, and that's how they know you, right? But that's not really you. Like, sure, like I talk about real things on stage, but it's like my persona. It's not really me. It's my like stage Irene.
Well, I would argue it's a part of you, but it's not the full picture, because it's like it's the part of you that's edited. Like, you've been able to rewrite the jokes, you've created the best possible entertainment value version of you, which, because you're not there. Like, the value of performing is not, they're not going there to make a friend, even though that is part of the illusion. They're going there to be entertained. So like, they're not like, you're not lying to them, but it is an easy thing to fall into, like the deception of like, oh, I know this person. It's like, well,
yeah,
no, because if you knew this person, you would do an 8-hour road trip with me, and I don't want to do that with everyone who comes to my shows. Not because I don't like them, I just don't know them. Like, I don't know if that would be fun. That's a very big question mark for me.
Yeah, exactly. Also for me, it's like really hard because I tend to not be attracted to the type of person that would come up to me after a show. Isn't that weird?
Interesting. I feel like, okay, because when I talk to you, I feel like a lot of male comedians, they like do comedy to try to talk to people. I've never viewed comedy that way.
Me neither.
I know that some women do, and I would say I get more women who come up to me after shows than men, so I could see how if you can put yourself in your dating profile version on stage, then yeah, maybe. But like, that isn't the goal for me either. So yeah, I kind of see what you're saying, because like my on stage presence is trying to tell stories and do whatever. I often probably wouldn't date the version of like, I think I'm putting the wrong vibes out on stage. Like, I'm like talking about how crazy I am. Whereas I feel like if I was trying to talk to people after shows, I'd be like, I'm just like a big little baby and I'm a little sexy baby. Like, whatever, you know.
It's happening.
Well, you know, like I don't know, like, I'm just I'm just trying to put on a persona that is totally not me. Not that I am that's my dating profile. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of times the dating profile version of you is like, I'm a helpless baby. Is that not a thing?
No, that's what I don't want, though. I don't want people to view me as a helpless baby.
But I don't want that. That's what I'm saying. No, I'm saying that's not.
You want that.
Okay. I have to back up a couple paces, because I realize I'm really bringing in bi culture in here, and I think the dating sites are very different, different depending on what you're looking for. But on stage, I feel like I'm fully me. Like, I'm me with opinions. I'm loud. I'm annoying. But on dating profiles, I feel like I have to try to put out like the attractive features first. So I don't do baby voice, but that was like a caricaturization of like, I feel like, cause I date both men and women, and I feel like there's a little bit more of like a playing into this like, oh, come take care of me vibe on dating apps. But I don't do that on stage, I guess, is what I'm saying.
No, you don't do that on stage.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's what I meant by, I was trying to do a character that was like, what would be the dating app version? Me too.
I know. While you were doing it, I was like, I'm throwing up right now. I was like, is this what dating is? Because I do not want to do it.
That's so funny. But I don't know if you would want to date people. I mean, gosh, because I feel like it's like not that I wouldn't date people who met me on a show, but they would have to actually get to know me first. So it's like,
right.
That's not why you do comedy anyways, is it? Like,
I guess like because I have dated people that met me through comedy, or they saw me on stage before like we actually got to know each other. But I don't want to date someone that's like fawning over me, you know, like I don't want you to be like obsessed with me or like my comedy. I would rather you think it's cool I do comedy and like you're like, oh, some of your jokes are funny. I do not want to be your favorite comedian.
True, because it's almost like if they decided you're their favorite comedian, they already decide they know you. But like part of dating is getting to know someone. So then you don't get any leeway to have different reactions than their expectations.
Well, yeah, because then they expect these things and I'm like, oh, I'm going to disappoint you. Like you're going to see the other side of me. And then it kind of ruins the illusion if someone's like, you're my favorite comedian, I want to date you. And I'm like, well, here's the ugly part. Then I will no longer be your favorite comedian.
Have you ever, just for like the sake of dissecting this, have like that's a fear that I relate to and a lot of people have, but has that happened before where you feel like, oh, I'll let you in, and then you feel like they didn't accept who you truly were? Or is it more of a like just a built-in fear that you won't even let someone get there?
And maybe a little bit of both. My very first girlfriend, I had such an intense fear that if she really knew me, that she would not like me. So then I would like say things or do things that kind of, you know, would basically, I would be like, do you really like me? Like I really questioned it the whole time. And I think that was very off-putting, which it totally is. And I get it. So I've been trying not to do that.
That's interesting because, I mean, I've been on the other end of people saying that, like, to me, and I used to get really, but this is also my pattern's unhealthy because then I'm like, I need, like, it's like codependent where I'm like, why do I need them to let me in? Like, I should accept that that's who they are, someone who has walls, and it'll take time. But I feel like in past relationships in my early 20s, a lot of times I was like sensing the walls and feeling like if the more they let down, the more they actually liked me. And hearing it from your side, it's like, it seems like you're not necessarily letting down walls because you like them more. You're just getting more comfortable with yourself. So it's like on both sides, there's a little bit of an illusion happening. Like I'm thinking, oh, love is when they let down their walls, but they like me the same amount, yes or no, but the walls are just there to protect themselves, not how they feel about me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's more about like me than you. If we were the people dating in this situation.
Yeah, that's so, I mean, man, it seems more obvious than when we talk about it now, but if I honestly, as a 22-year-old, you could not get that through to my head. Like,
oh yeah, no, me neither. I mean, I questioned every single person I've dated. I was like, do you actually like me? Either out loud or in my brain. And then it's just like, oh, I could have just accepted that they did like me, even though I think that a lot of things that I do are insane or like weird, you know, or need to be worked out. But that's just a me thing. Like that doesn't mean they don't like me.
And they could like those things. And they also, I feel like this is a scary part that I'm not good with yet, but I think hopefully I'll get to is when the idea of love is that you don't have to, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like you could love someone and not like parts of them, but not like you don't like them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I love my dog. I mean, I'm going to use a dog. I know we shouldn't compare animals to humans, but to me, he's the purest form of love I have because without me, he would die. And like,
I don't know if that's true.
Well, okay, true. But right now, like without me, like right now I'm his only caretaker. So there's like a sense of like, I have to love this dog unconditionally, whether I'm mad at him or not. And it's taught me a lot about, because my patterns growing up with my parents, not to their fault, but, you know, Asian parents show their love differently. You feel it's conditional. So with my dog, I feel like there are days where I'm like, I don't like that he's doing this, but I'm gonna work with him on this training thing or this, and he's still gonna get to eat and walk and everything normally. Like it's not gonna affect his routine because I'm mad at him for, pooping in, I don't know, on my floor or whatever. Which sounds dumb, but I feel like in human relationships that didn't make sense to me. Like I would think, oh, this person's mad at me because yesterday I couldn't hang out, so now I need to like do something to get back to where we were. But that's not how you view your I don't know, like your friendships. Well, I don't know, it might be, but that's, to me, I'm like, oh, I never understood that. It's not like a bar of love that goes up and down. You just like someone or you don't.
Right. I mean, if you're, again, in a healthy relationship. If you're in an unhealthy relationship, it is exactly like that.
Yeah, but it goes both ways too. So I think you don't need to be too hard on yourself. I think what your instincts are now seem right. Like you're looking at your patterns, but I wouldn't put all the blame on, like, it's not that things didn't work out because it was all on you. Like that person probably.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But in a way, she had that baby and you didn't want the baby, so it almost it's like the perfect example of like all the choices you made were probably right, because like imagine if you had kept going, you might have a baby.
I mean, again, technically she broke up with me, but I didn't want it to keep going, so we both made good choices. She had this baby that she wanted to have, and I don't have a baby now.
But you're doing comedy, which is what you want to do.
I mean, I was doing comedy the whole time, yeah.
True, but a baby probably would have at least taken some time away from that.
Okay, again, if there was a baby, I would have left.
You would.
I'm sorry, whoever's listening.
Was she going to have the baby whether or not you agreed to it?
I don't know. I think so, but I was upfront from the beginning. I said I don't want a baby. Like, no part of me wants a baby. So it's not like we agreed to have a baby and then I leave. Okay, yeah. I'm not like that person. Mm-hmm. I just was like, I don't want a baby. I'm like 23. Mm-hmm. I don't want a baby. I want to do comedy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sounds like you're exactly where you want to be. So that's good. Man, I'm like thinking about all the time, like, cause I don't check out my exes anymore. I'm like, damn, I can't imagine waking up. Like I used to wake up and check on them. I'm like, I don't know what I needed there, but I was definitely putting my energy into not doing anything about looking within.
Well, most of the time I don't check. I think I just got to this point in quarantine where I was like, I was just losing it. And I was like, okay, I'll check. But I really like almost never check.
It's perfectly normal. You had a funny joke when you talked about it on you and Andrew's show about how like if nobody's reached out to you by now. Like,
oh, you've never been in love?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. Everyone's been checked out by their exes. You got it, because it's like we're all like, we might die and we want to check in about people that we used to or still care about.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the most caring thing for me to do is to just let things lie. But I will say one of my exes who was just like an early 20s ex who was in like, I think if I didn't have to ever see this person again, I'd probably like let it lie. But one of those things where I was like, we're all messed up in our 20s. And now he's married and I know them both. And for like, we don't talk very much, but during quarantine, I texted her on her birthday because she's a friend of mine, but I texted them both because I was like, they're gonna think it's just, I don't want anybody reading into any of this, so I was just like, I'll just text them both and say, happy birthday, you're both on this, like, because you're one person now. And that's as much talking to any ex I've done this.
Well, that's good.
Well, actually, that's a lie. I ran into an ex at a protest, but she was like someone I went on like 4 dates with and didn't get in a relationship with because I wasn't in a place to be in.
That was the gayest sentence you said, by the way. I ran into an ex at a protest.
At like 2 or 3 different ones, because the first couple times she saw me and said, did you were there? And I was like, I was, why didn't you say hi? And then the second time she's like, you're across, but she didn't say hi because she wasn't sure. And I was like, say hi next time. And the second time she's like, you're not gonna believe me, but I saw you from across the street walking in. And then so we were texting for a bit, but then this didn't end well, and not in a bad way. Like I broke things off because I liked her, but last year I was just doing a lot of trauma therapy, and I was just like, once I know it's not going to be serious, I don't want it to be casual. That's where it was. Like I liked her enough to keep seeing her, but not enough to like I wasn't in a place to like commit to anything. I told her that, but she didn't believe me, which is fine. I don't need her to believe me, but she got a little upset. So then when we did start talking, she apologized. But then we started talking as friends, and then she was like, oh, we should meet up or do a social distance hang. And then I said, sure, it'd be great as friends, because I wanted to be super clear this time. And then she said, oh, I didn't mean as friends, but thank you for clearing that up. And she wasn't mad. So, I don't think she was. So to me, that was like, oh, we both grew, I think. Like,
oh, yeah, totally. That sounded like a great adult, mature conversation. And that seemed like it worked out.
But in the moment, I could catch myself feeling like, oh, is it going to be weird if I say this friends thing? Because what if she did mean that? And now she's going to think I assume she liked me. So there was a bit of this like moment of like, I don't want her to think. Like, it's going to be embarrassing if she's like, yeah, that's what I thought. Like, did you think? Like, and then I thought maybe I'll just say nothing. And then if it does come out later, I'll be like, oh, I didn't know. But the fact that I even had this conversation in my head, I was like, you know what? I'll just take the bullet here and be the one to be embarrassed if I've misread, and that will clear up any weirdness. So that made me look back on a lot of past relationships and go, there was probably a lot more clearing up that could have been done early on.
I think that's a lot. I mean, that's like most failed relationships. You're like, oh, we could have been more clear about what we wanted or what we definitely didn't want.
Oh, well, I feel like it sounds like you're definitely in a healthy place now to be talking about all this. And I think it's okay to still be in a place to sometimes want to give into those urges and then talk about it later, which seems like what you're doing. Because, I mean, it might sound like I have a lot of things to say about this, but I'm clearly also making many mistakes all the time. So I don't think you have to feel ashamed about that, as long as you're growing in your own life.
I feel good about it. I'm just like, she's probably going to find out that I've been talking. Oh, by the way, the baby blog, it's down now. Somebody told her.
Oh, okay. So you think she knows?
You gotta take it down.
Okay. Well, I feel like we're getting to the end of this. Is there anything? I know you didn't. You don't know for sure if she knows you were looking at her blog, and you're not. You don't want her to read anything about yours. But if, like, into the ether, something you want to get out there, like, is there any? Do you have full closure? Is there anything you want to say, like? Upon your new information of finding this blog that you feel like you want to add as a little, tag epilogue to you and this ex's story?
Just don't fuck up the baby.
Is this a good blog? Like, how is she as a writer? What would you recommend us read it? No, I'm just kidding.
No comment. I cannot divulge more information about this blog.
It's funny because
I scammed.
You said this, and I'm gonna do a confession in light of taking the heat off you. But my boyfriend now, actually, I don't know if I've fully told him this. I feel like he knows though, because I've sort of joked about this, and he knows who I am and knows that I would 100% do this. But when we weren't official, we weren't like, it wasn't like shady, like he was seeing other people, but he would hang out with one of his exes they were friends now, but it bugged me. And I got curious because one night he said they were hanging out, and I was like, yeah, that's fine. But I looked her up, and I found her like old acting videos and her Tumblr, and I went back and read like poetry, and I was like, damn, I for sure know her better than he does now. Like, there's absolutely no way he read her Tumblr poetry. There's just no way. Like, if he did, I would be concerned. I would be like, you should be with this person. Like, if a man has read your Tumblr poetry from 2017, just marry that person. I mean, truly, I don't even want to read my own Tumblr poetry, so it's
I'm cracking up. I'm trying not to laugh into the mic, but I'm dying. It is so. If a man reads your Tumblr poetry, just marry him.
But also, I was like, I don't want him to, because that would mean their relationship is more serious than I thought.
Yeah.
But hopefully that takes some heat off you. I don't think what you did.
That makes me feel better, because when I found this blog and I was telling a couple of my friends, I'm like, oh, I read my ex's blog. Everyone's jaw dropped. They're like, what? And I was like, oh, am I the only person that occasionally tries to find some stuff on the internet? I felt like I was crazy. But then now that you've said that, I'm like, oh, we're all doing this, and we're just not admitting it.
Yeah, people just don't want to admit it. If the more skeptical they look to you, the shadier they are, is what I say. So yeah, I'm really glad you shared that. I feel like, okay, I usually have a game at the end, but lately I've been doing this because of the world ending. It's a more open-ended one that I like to ask, which is just if you could create your own like society, like you don't have to put a label like capitalism or communism or whatever on it, but just 3 rules that everyone has to follow, but without magic. So no magic is involved, but what would be like, it doesn't have to be government related too. It could be like everybody has to eat ice cream every day, but
Okay,
yeah.
well, rule number 1 is no rape.
That's a good rule.
Thank you. I feel like that would solve a lot of issues. Rule number 2.
That is a rule we have though. No, but
I know, but like,
but it would be more focused.
I
yeah,
guess
for sure.
there would be. I don't know. I know there's
no,
no
I like
magic,
that
but
rule. I
there's no
thought
rape,
out loud.
Okay,
And
stop raping people. God, makes me so mad. Rule number 2 is, you can be a millionaire, but you can't be a billionaire.
that's a good rule.
Yeah.
Limits.
Yeah. Limits. I love rules, by the way.
Are you
rule
Virgo?
What?
Are you a Virgo?
No, I'm not a Virgo.
Sorry, you said that so upset. I'm sorry. I'm a Virgo moon. I didn't mean that in a mean way, but like Virgos like rules.
Oh. No, I'm an Aries.
Ooh.
I don't know what that means.
I like Aries.
Thank you. Rule number 3 is, I guess I don't know what rule number 3 would be. I guess rule number 3 is I would have to be in charge.
Okay, Dictator Irene.
Yeah. Okay, again, I am a benevolent dictator.
I could go with that, sure. I mean,
Yeah.
as someone who knows you, I'd sign up. As someone who doesn't know you, I'd have to do a little research, and then I'd probably sign up. So.
Right. I just feel like everyone who ever runs for like office, for like public office, I think you have to be a little bit unwell to want to do that.
Yeah, I see what you... Well, yes and no. There has to be something that you're missing, because if everything's great and you don't need anything, there's not... Like, by definition, you would not go out seeking fulfillment, especially not in a very difficult task as winning, like, a leadership role. So something has to be missing. Yeah. It doesn't have to be necessarily bad, but
That's true. It doesn't have to be bad, but there is something missing. And I hate inefficiency and I hate injustice, and I would love to just fix everything that's wrong, but there's no part of me that ever wants to run for office. So if we had this magical world, I would just be a benevolent dictator and fix all our problems.
I like that. It almost like makes me think that there's like some sci-fi version of a society where it's like anonymous dictators, because it's like, well, they're in charge, but there is power, but there's no power, because it's like, there's no face, there's no king. It's like, we all know there's someone doing it, and as long as it's working, we're all cool with it, and there's a suggestion box or whatever, but like, nobody's taking advantage of it because we don't know who the power is.
That's true.
And you could still be a stand-up comedian.
I would be a stand-up comedian.
Would you still do stand-up if you were a benevolent dictator?
Would I still do stand-up if I was No. What? I would not have time to do stand-up comedy as a benevolent dictator. Are you kidding me? Stand-up comedy is inherently selfish.
You could just do any arena you wanted to as the benevolent dictator.
No, see, stand-up comedy, inherently selfish. If I was a benevolent dictator, I could not do that.
I sense a sitcom. Okay. Thank you so much, Irene, for confessing on this podcast. Where can people find you?
You can follow me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, at Irene_Tu. That's TU.
Cool. And you can follow this podcast at Tell Me Anything Pod, and follow me at Larissa T on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you.